This is Dorothy McKellar, and she says, I want a sunburned country, a land of sweeping plains. And she's a famous Australian poet, you may be aware of. And this is Martin Ferguson, not a famous Australian poet. He says, Australia is a mountain of coal surrounded by a sea of gas. So for me, I'm with Dorothy McKellar, and I think her legacy will last a lot longer than Martin's. So hopefully we can go with Dorothy's forecast and not Martin's. But that's a bit of Martin's there. This is the salt. So you wouldn't want to inject it, potassium nitrate. You could lick your fingers with a bit of it on there. It tastes pretty horrible. You wouldn't want to ingest a glassful. But basically, it's licensed by the EPA. Like, it doesn't have special licensing arrangements because it's used for fertiliser on farms and handled by farmers. So it's a closed system, so you are using quite a bit of salt, but using it once at the setup of the plant, and at the end of the life of the plant, it could go back into conventional food production if it's still being used in 20 years' time, or it can be recycled into another plant, or its life can be prolonged. It's just elemental. So this is what a thermal storage tank, a cold tank looks like. So it's a carbon steel tank, and they've got like 40 of these at the Exxon Mobil refinery in Melbourne. The hot tank is actually stainless steel because the salt's a little bit more well, it's not corrosive in its cold state. It is corrosive in its very minorly corrosive property in its hot state, so you stainless steel for the hot tank. There's the cold tank on the left there and the hot tank on the right. This is just my holiday pics from Spain. Bring back good memories. This is the plant here not generating. This is a baseload solar plant, so it's a 24-hour solar power plant. It's solar power around the clock, solar power all through the night. This plant has a 76% capacity factor, meaning that out of 8,760 hours in a year, it produces for 6,500 or something like that of the hours. In this particular latitude, you can bring this plant up to 90%, but you'd need co-firing with either biogas, biomass or fossil gas, and you could bring it up to 90% plus. So in our plan we actually have some of the plants, half the plants are co-fired with a very small amount of biomass pelletized pellets that heat the salt directly. This is when I took Tony Windsor and Ross Garneau to see Torresol's Gema Solar, and that's the plant. That's Tony Windsor on the left, Santiago Arias, who's the plant manager, Ross Garneau and Ross's wife over here, and they were pretty impressed, and Tony's hoping that his part that he played in the Clean Energy Future Package will achieve some solar thermal plants. But I'm unfortunately not so sure. I'm hoping he hasn't been dudded on the detail in what he was asking for. So he's hoping that west of his electorate could be a place that we build these. Just for context, in Spain, it's the equivalent of building these in Mildura, and Mildura is kind of the worst place to build them in Australia. A place you would build them, but it's the last place in terms of going south. So when you're up here in Queensland, you're talking 30% or greater in terms of 30% more energy than what they do in Spain. So you have the same concrete, same steel, same glass, same workforce, put it all together, and 30% more power comes out the other end, and that's significant in economic terms. This is a plant on sun, so you can see now instead of being blackest to black, it's glaringly white, because even black, you can't get pure black, so it's actually reflecting light off that black. If you're right inside the plant and you get up close, you don't quite need welding goggles, but they have special goggles there. They're not like welding goggles you can see quite reasonably, but they're definitely filtered, so for safety for all the workers. And these are wind turbines. These are in Belgium. The same ones have been built in Sweden, Germany and France, and they're Enercon 7.5 megawatt turbines. So in Australia we've predominantly got 2 and 3 megawatt turbines. So these are 7.5 megawatts, so they're more than double the size of what we've got in Australia. But to the human eye, a wind turbine is a wind turbine is a wind turbine. You actually can't tell the difference of a 1 megawatt turbine on the horizon versus a 7.5 megawatt turbine on the horizon. So given the biggest difficulty of getting wind turbines out there is community engagement issues, then I'd argue installing a third as many wind turbines for the same outcome is definitely the way to go, even if they cost 10% more per megawatt in the actual technology, because they'd actually be getting built. So we argued for 6,500 of these. So here I've got a bit of a rundown of what's going on in China. They've got 200,000 megawatts of wind by 2020 as a target. So they just keep upping it up to 200,000 megawatts or 200 gigawatts. Australia's complete capacity, including all its peak capacity, is 50 gigawatts. And China's target for 2020 is 200 gigawatts of wind. So it's 4 times our entire capacity across the country. Not only that, they've got a 2050 target, which is 1 million megawatts or 1 terawatt of wind, and it's going to be 18% of China's electricity from wind. And Denmark, interestingly, up until when the previous Conservative government was in, Denmark had a 50% wind by 2020 target, so 50% of the country running on wind power. Currently about 22% runs on wind. When the new government got in, the new, I don't know, it's equivalent of the Labor Party, it's the, the centre-left party, it changed the target to 50% wind by 2020. So it's quite reasonable for Australia to have a target of 50% wind power by 2020, given that you install a wind turbine in Denmark and it produces half the amount of electricity than when you install the same wind turbine in Australia on our good sites. So in other words, it's like the My Christmas sales, when people are scrambling on top of each other and they're trying to get those bargains. It's buy one, get one free. We install one wind turbine and we get the power of another one for free. So I'm expecting Martin Ferguson to be crawling over and trying to get those wind turbines installed, because we're getting a 50% discount on our wind power when compared to Denmark. And Denmark's an OECD leader, it's a leading economy, and they're resource poor, and they're able to do this, and they're able to carry Europe while doing it. I mean, they're one of the countries carrying Europe at the moment during difficult economic times, and they're sticking to their guns and their 50% wind target. Solar thermal power, we actually set up our wind target for the plan at 40% of the nation's power, so 60% of balance on the supply side is solar thermal storage. Each module we scale up to is 220 megawatts electrical, and that's the net figure, so the turbine's rated at 245. And each solar region has 19 modules, so you can think of 19 smokestacks, but with no smoke coming out the top. We've got 12 regions like that. For a bit of context, the Latrobe Valley, Victoria has about 22 smokestacks, but they've got smoke coming out the top. And they've got big cooling towers as well. Now these are air cooled, so we've adapted them and costed them as being air cooled, so there's a lot less water than conventional coal plants have been doing to date across Australia. 40% of Australia's energy from wind, 6,500 Enercon turbines, and a wind region would be 2,000 to 3,000 megawatts, so 250 to 400 wind turbines, and roughly 23 wind regions across the nation. So this is all detailed in how we do that in the plan. There is a small amount of biomass co-firing of the molten salt I mentioned before, so here you can see sort of a breakdown. It's less than 2% of the output from the solar thermal comes from the salt tank being actually heated via a furnace that's linked to biomass pellets being burnt. So the biomass pellets are just put aside in like those wheat bunkers next to a railway line, and that's how they come in, ready to convey them in. Now the aim is actually to try and minimise biomass burning to zero where possible, and that'll be something we'll try our best to achieve in version 2 of the Station Energy Plan, because biomass is hugely competitive on a land basis. I need another slide to show it. Use a lot more land to get the same amount of energy versus using solar PV, that's like the rooftop solar panels, or solar thermal to get the same amount of energy. So you want to have the minimum footprint to get your energy in. So solar thermal and PV achieves that, whereas biomass doesn't. Let me sec. So this is the renewable energy system we could have in 2020 if we chose to do so in a decade. It's a decadal plan to get there. It's got 12 solar regions distributed around the country, a modernised and updated grid, which is a high voltage DC grid. These have been built in South America and China and Europe, just about anywhere except for Australia. And it's the same as what Basslink is run on, HVDC. and you can see the wind sites, the 23 wind sites. So in the next version of our plan, we envisage instead of wind being 40% of the solution, it'll probably be 50% of the solution because it's so cheap. This gives you an idea of wind geographical diversity and how the annual average output of wind turbines gets closer and closer as you distribute the wind on a geographical basis, which leads to meteorological diversity. So here's South Australia alone, and you can see this is the worst period we could find in 2008. It really dives from July 2nd through July 3rd there. Then you add Victoria in, you can see now it's getting closer to even. And what we don't have is data for New South Wales and Queensland, and that's what we're getting in version 2. So that'll get even closer to the annual average being maintained off every hour, every minute of the year. And here you've got the demand we scaled up for 2020, and there's the solar thermal storage. So you're ramping those parallel turbines, about 220 of them, all in parallel, and you can basically be matching demand and matching the ebbs and flows in the variable renewables along with the demand. So this is what the demand looks like on an annual basis in 2008. We did a few years of back modelling, and you can see the biomass co-firing contingency coming in there. So you could eliminate that if you really overbuilt the solar thermal and the wind considerably, but the cost of doing that would be more than the $15 billion cost of installing the whole pelletisation plants and the biomass co-firing furnaces. But we hope to reduce that to a point where you don't need the biomass co-firing, but you have it at a number of sites as a contingency. Because in Japan they never predicted that they'd have 4 nuclear plants operating and 50 turned off. So you don't want to be caught with your pants down. So what you do is you have some, even if you don't need biomass co-firing, you have some set up at some plants as an additional energy security measure. This shows you what wind can do, and now Spain basically has no fossil fuel resources, a very small amount of coal that's coming to the end of life, and that's pretty much been wound down massively. From a country that was running 50% coal, it's running less than 8% coal now. So they have no resources, certainly not exporting any fossil fuels, but here they're actually exporting energy into France, and they're bumping French nuclear through to Italy and Germany. So that green area there is Eolica, it's wind, and you can see they've hit 59% wind on this occasion, and they're going to be doing this more and more because they keep installing more wind turbines, so they'll be hitting 70% shortly. But right now they're on 59%. The top area is solar thermal storage and biomass plants. So over 70% of their power at this point in time is coming from renewables, and they're bumping some of their power, so effectively exporting wind into France and in Algeria, which is down here. So you've got a country with no natural resource actually is an energy exporter. So that's pretty exciting. Now if that was Australia with an islanded grid and we had that excess there, we would be turning some of our wind turbines out of the wind, or we'd be just holding, or preferably, actually this is night time, so we wouldn't be doing that. We'd scale down our solar thermal plants because we just hold the heat in those tanks, waiting for when the demand picks up again, and then we start generating from our solar thermal plants. That's what we roughly do, because we can just, it's like